Welcome to GlowNatural, the podcast about living naturally, experiencing fully, and radiating your brilliance. I'm your host, Lisa Jendza, and I love sharing with you deep and meaningful conversations with all of my guests. Today, I have with me Barb Abramson, the founder of Making Meaningful Connections, a writer for JLife magazine, and the editor of the Good Men Project. And if this isn't enough, she sits on the board of directors for Aspire Health Partners. Welcome today, Barb.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me.
So today we're going to talk about law of attraction, which I understand you are an advocate of law of attraction and even taught workshops regarding law of attraction.
I did. I was asked to attend a law of attraction workshop many, many years ago, and I went to my first meeting and really felt a kinship with being around other like-minded people who were very, very positive. And after the first meeting, the hostess announced she was moving away and looked at me and said, "You should take this over." And I said, "Okay." And I did. And I really felt that it was a great decision that I did that for myself because it uplifted me at the same time. And I really began to focus on my thoughts because that's what law of attraction really is. It's focusing on your thoughts, and your thoughts become things. And it was a wonderful 4 years of monthly workshops with about 40 to 50 people in attendance and people who also wanted to have a really good positive experience. And there's nothing like a lot of people in the room with the same focused, positive energy to make great things happen.
I would agree with that. And, you know, it's funny because you obviously manifested that you took over that workshop. I find that so interesting.
I think so, too. And I reflect back on that. I think that's exactly what happened because I joined right in there and really loved it and went on to get certified as a prosperity coach, really focusing on the laws, studied a lot about the law of attraction. You and I had talked before about Abraham Hicks and the law of attraction, and I actually went on their second cruise that they ever did to Alaska many years ago with Esther and Jerry Hicks. And can you imagine 4 days on a cruise with 8-hour workshops all focused on being positive? Best cruise ever.
Oh, my gosh, that sounds wonderful. I have not done any of their events. I've just listened to their recordings. I follow a lot of people on YouTube that share their recordings, and I absolutely love them. I remember someone turned me on to Abraham Hicks, probably going on 10 years ago. And at first it was a little frightening. You know, they say first the truth will piss you off before it empowers you. Well, that's true. So excuse my French, but that is so true because I remember thinking what my thoughts create my reality. And then I started to really look at my thoughts, and my thoughts were pretty negative. I realized I come from a very negative family who worries about everything and is always looking for the worst to happen.
I grew up in that same situation. My parents were of the generation where, you know, they were probably all born, you know, during the Depression. They grew up in a state of lack, and that's what they knew. And a lot of what we learn is, you know, the families we're born into and the experiences that we have. So I think my parents attracted each other, and they were a wonderful, loving couple, but they always lived in the fear of what could go wrong. And guess what? It usually did. And I just didn't resonate with that. And I was always happy and smiling and had a totally different outlook on life, and recognized early how I thought differently than them, and made it a point to be positive, and great things would start happening.
Well, I'm so envious because it's taken me until, you know, midlife to learn that, and longer for me to learn how to change that. I had to first become conscious of how negative my thoughts were, become conscious of my thoughts, before I could then become conscious of how to change them. And I would say that's still a work in progress for me. So what kind of advice do you have for someone who might be in a negative situation, who doesn't know how to change their thinking?
Well, first of all, I think it's awesome that wherever you are in your life, when you have that realization, it's a wonderful thing because that's a step in the right direction. And congratulate yourself for that positive step and directional turn at whatever stage you are in your life. I think, though, the very, very first thing you have to do is suspend your disbelief. You said that you got angry at first because you realized that maybe you had negative thoughts or you didn't want to believe that. You have to make a really willing, conscious effort to explore it and say, okay, here's where I am, because I kind of look at it, if you're in this spot and you're negative and someone is telling you that you could do something different and have a wonderful, positive experience, what's the worst that can happen? You'll still be where you are. But if you suspend your disbelief and say, I am willing to try this, you will be so amazed at the results. The law of attraction, works on both sides of the coin. So we attract the bad in the same way we attract the good. And sometimes it's that awareness like you've had. So think about the person who stubs their toe and then they're so frustrated they bump into the wall and, everything goes wrong, and then they drop something and it breaks and life is horrible. And there's a person walking right next to them who's looking up at the sky and smiling and seeing the blue and feeling the breeze. They're in the exact same environment, but it's really about that perspective that we have of how we're handling things, how we're dealing with things, how we're perceiving things. So suspend your disbelief and it's actually a really easy risk when you think about it, to think a good thought and let something good into your life.
My husband always said that life is for the joy of it, that it's really the joy in the journey. And he's always really believed that. And I've come now to realize that law of attraction is about how we feel. And so that good thought is it's a great pivoting point, but it's what the good thought does for us, right? The good thought makes us feel good, and it's our emotions that create our vibration. Mm-hmm. So in addition to good thoughts, what other ways can we change our vibration?
Well, one is also who we're hanging around. Look around if you're having a lot of negative thoughts and see if a lot of your friends are having negative thoughts. And I'm not suggesting that you throw all your friends, away and not hang around any of them, but sort of realize about the energy you're circulating around. So choose to attract people that are really positive, and you attract that, again, by thinking those positive thoughts as well. I think the biggest thing for me that I learned to change things around was gratitude. When you can find things that you are grateful for, it is the biggest flip switcher that I've ever experienced. Have you ever kept a gratitude journal?
I have started one from time to time. I also started a list of positive aspects as recommended by Abraham Hicks. And I've never maintained either one of those. The only thing I've maintained is my journal.
Well, whatever you do in whatever capacity, it's all a good thing. There are different things that work for different people. I've heard of people that start out in the morning by writing 3 things they're grateful for. Some write 1 breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Some write at the end of the day. And it doesn't have to be monumental things that happen. It can be something as simple as noticing the flowers that bloomed in your garden today, or the sun peeking through the clouds, or waking up and feeling good, taking a deep breath, seeing something beautiful. Whatever it is, just to write something grateful. Every night at dinner, my husband and I hold hands, and we each express something we're grateful for. And we do this if it's the 2 of us, if we have a dinner party, if if our son and his wife are in town. It is sort of our tradition. Gratefulness doesn't have to be for Thanksgiving. We do it 365. And, it could be that our son called and we had a wonderful conversation with him, and hearing his voice was joyful. So the being in an attitude of gratitude of something every day, no matter how small it is a great way to switch that mindset. And for some people, writing it down helps anchor it deeper. That's why a lot of people recommend gratitude journals. And if you forget to write in it one day, don't beat yourself up about it. Be grateful you pick it up again the next day. Be grateful that if you took longer to recognize the law of attraction, for example, be grateful that you did, because every moment is an opportunity for something better.
I'm smiling because my husband and I are now much more cognizant of expressing our gratitude towards each other. I think there's something that happens when your baby turns 18, right? Because you don't have to stay together to be parents anymore. So I think your relationships can shift whether you realize it or not. And I think I've just been very conscious of our evolution all through our life and through our marriage. We've been together 30 years. And I was very conscious of the types of conversations and the dialogue that we were having even as our youngest neared, high school graduation and adulthood. And I realized what happens consciously or unconsciously is you're trying to decide how you want the rest of your life to be, the second half, right? Because we spent that first half of our lives together as parents. And I know you and I talked before, because of your work on the Good Men Project, that we actually had to sort out some masculine feminine issues, because I had been in a very domineering masculine role. And really what I decided for the second half of our life is I want to be in a very feminine role, which means I have to allow him to be in that masculine role. But in that process, some very deep appreciation came out of all those years of parenting and not taking the time to appreciate one another. We're making up for it now. And we thank each other constantly. Thank you for fixing the clogged sink. and I know it sounds silly, but we're in such a good place, and that gratitude and appreciation for each other tends to build. And then it just makes us love each other more. There's so much love.
Well, now you have me smiling because it is so true. I think you're my twin, but it's really true, because that clogged sink or doing the dishes, or sometimes we can get irritated because somebody dropped their socks on the floor and didn't pick them up, and so you focus on that. You're going to be really upset and angry. But then he does the dishes unexpectedly, and it's like, wow, thank you so much for doing the dishes. And there's actually, I think, a chemical shift that happens in your body when you're grateful. And you walk by the socks, and you're like, oh, the socks are here. You pick them up, you put them in the hamper. And it doesn't have that energy attached to it. When you're grateful to each other, it sort of dispels all the other. And so I found that as well in my own marriage. We're going on 33 years, so very close to you guys. And it's really true. Things that irritate you, if you're grateful about enough other things, those things don't even matter. They don't show up for you in anger. You and I were talking about Facebook earlier, right? And about all the negative stuff that's on there. And you said you got off of Facebook for a while. And for me, I look at it as I'm grateful for all the people that I've connected with. I had a best friend in California when I lived there as a little girl. I was 10, she was 11, and we walked to school together every day. We were best buddies, and we both got married. We both had a child. She's had a few more since, and we lost contact with each other. And one day we found each other, about 5 years ago on Facebook. And we actually met and had the best time. like almost like we were 10 and 11 again, but we caught up on our lives. And so I'm so grateful to connect with her on Facebook, and I see her posts and all the people that are talking about whatever's going on that, is spewing negativity. I really don't see them. I just scroll right by them. They don't have the effect on me at all. So when you focus on the stuff that you love, that makes you happy, that other stuff doesn't really show up anymore. You're looking up at the blue sky and feeling the breeze.
Yeah, I love that because it really is what we focus on, and I think there is some emotional intelligence in there that takes some practice. So for me being an empath, I didn't even realize for many years how much I was taking on or in from other people, which is really what drained me when I owned my spa, because I wanted to help everyone fix everything, right? And I created this safe space and allowed people to come in and share and talk about whatever they were going through. It really was a judgment-free zone. I had no room to judge anyone, and I created a space of love and trust, and they knew they could tell me anything, and then I took it home with me and prayed for them and didn't realize even how much of that I was taking on. So I would say there's definitely some level of emotional intelligence where we have to learn to discern, hold that gratitude and stay in that place of I can't really do good for anyone else if I don't protect myself first. And that's really been my process these last couple of years. I've watched myself learn how to create healthy boundaries. I mean, how do you do that being a sensitive person, an empath like yourself, like you and I?
Such a great question. Somebody taught me this. So if I can share it with somebody else and it makes a difference for them, that brings me joy because when you learn something yourself and you can help others, that makes me happy. So a friend of mine who's an energy worker taught me about using a shield. She used to use roses, that she would wrap herself in roses. And that one didn't resonate for me because everybody has their own thing. For me, I use plexiglass because I can see things coming at me. I'm very visual. I like to see things. So to me, that blanket of roses was a non-visual for me. But plexiglass is a shield for me. So things can come at me and they just bounce back off. I don't let them sink in. I can just send them away. And if I want them in, I can open the shield. And while that may sound airy-fairy to somebody, for me it's something that works. I have my own protection. So somebody's words don't hurt me. Somebody's negative comments don't hurt me. If you really, truly understand emotions, you understand that when somebody is yelling or screaming, it's really not about you. It's always about them and the circumstances that they're in and their own unhappiness. And so, when people say don't take it personal, it may not be an easy thing to really understand, but truly don't take it personal and just put your shield up and you can have empathy for them, but you don't have to absorb what they're sending out because that's also how we get sick. We let anger into our bodies, and that anger can give us all kinds of illnesses and diseases because we hold it in. So you just have to find a way to protect yourself and use whatever really resonates with you. Like I said, for me, it's a shield. And it took me a little time to figure out what that was. Other people use other things. They might put a light over them or visualize angels around them. Whatever works, it might be a color. It might be that the color gold or the color white. Whatever it is, resonate with something that feels protective and safe and block everything out. Like I said, I don't see the negative stuff on Facebook because it just doesn't come up for me. But I see my friend from childhood. She's right there. I'm so excited to talk to her all the time.
Oh, I love that. It's so true that who we spend our time with also makes a huge impact. Like you said, we need to become more discerning. And I think, I'd heard a lot of personal development and spiritual teachers make these comments over the years, and I thought, well, I can't imagine, what do I do? Just cut out my whole family because they're negative. But it is interesting as you evolve and you become more enlightened, more positive, more awakened, whatever terminology you want to use, where you spend your time does shift. And I find myself, that's part of the reason I want to do these interviews. I choose to surround myself with people like you. These are conversations that I love to have. And if I can't have these conversations with those, in my family or childhood friends, then I end up speaking to them less and all of my new friends and acquaintances like yourself more. So really it just sort of happens, right? It just happens naturally that you start spending more time with like-minded people as you shift and change.
And as you shift and change, those like-minded people will start showing up in your life because you have attracted their energy, because you want to be around people who think like you do. It's really not fun being at a pity party because that's what it is. Everybody is complaining about the same thing. Who has a good time at those? But when you're around the people
I can so relate to that. I have people in my family who live their whole life as a pity party.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a lot of fun for them, I'm sure, but for somebody whose consciousness is higher like yours, it's not a fun place to be and you don't want to be there. And if you even try to change the conversation and say something positive, most of the time they're not going to get it. But I used to play a game. Make it a game. I used to play a game with my mom. And, she would, oh, I'm so unhappy and this is wrong. And I would just sort of reframe it for her and say it in a different way. And or she'd be complaining and she'd be in my car and I'm like, oh, isn't it a beautiful day out? And she would sort of stop because I wasn't giving the attention to that. And, oh, look, isn't that pretty over there? And I would sort of distract her and get her to notice pretty things. And I think that over time she softened a little bit because she realized that I didn't give, attention. It's like not giving attention to the baby that's having that temper tantrum.
Right.
And focusing on the positive stuff. And so, it's a way to help you be with other people that are negative and maybe lift them up a little bit because that's a great gift, right?
Well, I could just laugh at your analogy because my parents think anymore that my husband is off in La La Land and that I've become airy-fairy. And so they're angry that we don't get angry over the political, landscape. So we try to disengage at every opportunity. So, yeah, like, oh, look, the sun's out today. And then they get even angrier. So it doesn't even matter. My husband will try to change the subject. He'll, put a sporting event on, and then my dad will complain about the sporting event or the sports players or how much they make, and then we'll put on like the Grammys, and then he'll complain about how they all make too much money. Or we're doing our best here to try to shift that energy. But boy, I can relate. I'm sure there's a lot of people who will listen to this interview who can relate.
Yeah, and the other is the news. So there's a lot of disharmony in the news right now, in government, in politics, and there's a lot of sadness in the news. I live in Florida, and yesterday there was another mass shooting at a school, and it's horrible news. And one of my cousins is a teacher at that school who told me she hid under her desk, and I'm so grateful she's okay and heartbroken for the families. But I'm aware of it, but I do not turn the news on for hours and hours and hours to watch it over and over again because they'll repeat it all day long. And with the politics and as you said, there's a lot of discord there. And if you spend a lot of time engaging in that and absorbing that, you're going to bring anger in your body. And I don't deny that any of that is going on. And I look for ways that I can help in other ways, maybe a peaceful march or something to help bring about change in a positive way. but I don't internalize and I don't sit for hours in front of it. And I will also watch shows that are uplifting and shows that make me happy because I need to feed my own soul. And my soul has to be strong before I can be there for anybody else, because you want to be a source of light. You don't want to be one that absorbs the darkness.
Oh, that is such a good point. Well, that's a tweetable moment right there. It's actually a great conversation, because what happened yesterday was horrible, and it is sad, and we can pray for those people. And that's what I was telling you, is as an empath, I feel so much in my body, and I think that's where a lot of people get confused over. So I'm just supposed to have these Pollyanna views and ignore everything that's happening in the world, but we can't do anything positive from a negative place, which is also how we can't fix things with anger. I keep looking at how all the anger that I see, like around the political landscape, but we don't change. The law of attraction says you're going to attract what you're giving energy to. Even if the energy is anger, you're attracting more of it. So I've spent the last couple of years really looking at the fundamentals of law of attraction, not just the surface of law of attraction. What you think about, you bring about. And if I just say a positive affirmation every day, it'll come true, because it actually won't if your underlying belief is that it won't. And whatever we're giving our energy to, which often we're giving our energy to negative things, hoping it's going to make it go away, but it doesn't.
So you just made a great comment about positive affirmations if our underlying belief is negative. So that's saying, I really want this, but, and that but negates everything that you're doing, because you're telling the universe that I want this, but I'm not good enough. I want this, but I don't believe I should have it. I want this, but I don't believe I can do it. I want this, but there's some other force that's going to keep that from happening. And the minute you put that but up there, it's like closing the curtains, shutting the door, and turning your back on it. You have to say, I want this, and I deserve it, and I'm worthy, and it makes me feel good. And you hear the difference in my voice when I say that. It's like holding out your two hands, and you put a balloon, a helium balloon in one, and you put a brick in the other. And that brick is that but. And think about, as you're holding the two, where your hands go. Your helium balloon, I want this, I deserve it. I should have this. It's for me. It excites me. It makes me feel good. And over here is, I want this but. That brick is weighing you down. And so think about where your hands are when you do that. And that's the difference in the law of attraction, of believing it and making those affirmations. But you have to throw that but away, because that is going to stop you from getting what you want. You have to suspend your disbelief. You have to suspend disbelief that this isn't meant to be. You have to take that risk and say, what's the worst thing that can happen by thinking a good thought? Nothing can happen. Nothing bad can happen if you're thinking good thoughts. You wouldn't be any worse off than you were anyway, but keep thinking good thoughts, and it's amazing. It's just amazing. And it's really something that you'll believe it as you'll see it happening.
Yeah, Abraham Hicks talks about it being split energy. So you've split your energy between this want and this contradictory belief. And I think that that's probably happening for a lot of people. I know it happened for me for a long time, of what I wanted, but any contradictory beliefs that I had were splitting my energy. And that's what slows us down. That's where we get in our own way.
Totally get in our own way. And you said something earlier when we were talking about that you held yourself back by thinking you needed a partner. And I've had that too, thinking I need to collaborate with somebody because I have someone to share it with and somebody to help support me. And there is an underlying belief that I wasn't enough to do this all myself. And I really resonated with what you said, and it hit home for me as well, that, I can do anything I want to do. I have the skills, I have the ability, I have the connections. So I had to stop and examine what was holding me back as well. So when you said that earlier, that had been a false belief of yours as well, I think you and I are soul sisters because we've had some similar experiences, but it's fascinating to see also how we've also had the realization that focusing on the good and what we want and the power of positive thinking is so life-changing and affirming at the same time.
I agree. And I don't think that there's a better place to be than being conscious of it. So I wouldn't trade any of my life lessons for anything because I've learned so much about myself, about the world, about spirit, about creator, about really what we're all capable of, where we all come from and where we're all going back to just seems to be so much clearer to me. But I had to bump around quite a bit down here in this human body to figure all that out.
It's not such a bad thing because, learning is lifelong, and we're all born into different situations, and we may have that thought that changes us at all different times in our lives. We're surrounded by so many different things in an environment. We're not born thinking negative, and we're not born, with bad experiences. Hopefully, there might be a few situations, but we learn so much from our surroundings and our environment. And the beautiful thing is that we are conscious beings with brains and thoughts and emotion and intelligence, and we have the capacity to center ourselves and make a change and turn our lives in so many different directions. Sometimes you see those really feel-good stories, on some of the news magazine shows about somebody who was down and out in their luck and reached out and helped somebody else, and next thing it spreads and they end up on top of the world. And that was by that single action of focusing on helping somebody else instead of feeling sorry for themselves in any capacity, and positive thought, positive action, and their lives are totally transformed. I love those kinds of stories.
Me too. I mean, just this whole conversation makes me feel good. This has been such an awesome interview. I think there's so many nuggets out of this conversation for so many people. The value of gratitude, expressing gratitude, and how that can change your life. And if you focus on positive, you'll surround yourself with positive people and positive conversations. And if you're stuck in, that place, or you're surrounded by negative people or come from a negative family, it just takes a little bit of consciousness. Be aware of those thoughts, and then find something that makes you feel good. And for me, at first, it was difficult to find a good feeling thought. I'm so in my head and so analytical that I would often still come back to the worst thing that could happen. And for me, it was actually dance. It was dance that helped me to start feeling good and get into my body. I had to get out of my head and into my body. And so yoga and meditation and then dance, those were ways that I started to shift the vibration and shift the energy in my life. And then I could start to see things differently. My perspective changed on so many things. So I can't say enough that, the teachings of Abraham Hicks and conversations like these bring so much more clarity to me about what that means. What does law of attraction mean? What am I attracting to myself? And we all have the power. We all have the power to change. If we don't like something in our life, it can change.
I love what you said about finding something that made you feel good. So dance was a lifesaver for you, and learning yoga and learning meditation. You did it gradually, a little thing at a time, because you don't want to do too much and be an overwhelm. So find one good thing. I use an analogy of thinking about being in a big pit of gunk, and gunk is all that negative stuff, and there's a ladder going out. Well, you don't go from that bottom ladder to the top in one step. You pull yourself up a rung at a time, and there's going to be an occasion when you might slip back a rung or two, but you pull yourself up a rung again, and each rung on that ladder is a different emotion. At that very bottom is that maybe sadness or despair, and not everybody starts there, but it might be that you're sad about something. And as you pull yourself up higher, you might get to a state of anger, but that's a higher emotion, and eventually you'll keep going up, and then you'll look down and say, wow, look how high I am. Every time you go up a rung on that ladder, look down and see where you were, and you still may have a ways to go, but you just go slowly, one rung at a time, and when you reach that top and you crawl out of that, what a difference in emotions you'll be at. You'll have gone from that sadness all the way up to joy. It doesn't happen overnight. Nothing happens overnight. Life is work, but being happier every moment that you're living your life, what a great gift you could give yourself. Giving to others is fantastic, and giving to yourself. That's what most people, I think, forget, is that self-care element. Protecting your energy, loving yourself, telling yourself that you're worthy. That's really all part of the law of attraction, because you have to love yourself. Some people say, why can't I ever attract a good man in my life or a good woman in my life? If you don't love yourself, how is somebody else going to love you in that same positive, uplifting manner that you want to be loved in? Because if you're negative about yourself, you'll attract somebody just like that. And if you can raise yourself up to that positive place, then you're going to attract what you want into your life and who you want into your life.
Yeah, you can start by attracting positive friends.
Positive friends, yes. It doesn't always have to be, a relationship. It can be anything, anybody. But, yes, attracting those positive people into your life. And there's nothing more fun. I have a group of three other women. We get together once a month for a lunch, because we just so love each other's energy and joy. And we laugh and we giggle, and we look forward to these lunches once a month, and we put them on our calendars because this is something that brings us such joy. We all have this wonderful energy together, and just having that monthly lunch to look forward to, we're all excited and giddy to get together because we have so much fun. And just if you have one friend that's positive, it's a great place to start, to get together, and you'd be surprised how things will start to change. It's that one little step, that one rung on the ladder.
What a great way to end this, is to ask everyone to think about what's the one thing that brings you joy, and go do more of it. And if it's dancing or a friend or whatever it may be, playing the piano, whatever brings you joy, just go do that.
Yes, yes, yes.
It will definitely shift your vibration. So, Barb, how do people connect with you? What is the best way for them to find you?
They can find me on my website. It's barbabramson.com, and that's ABRAMSON. And it's Making Meaningful Connections. They can. There's a contact page there for me, and I'll get an email right away, and they can check out my site and my workshops on creating positive relationships. I work with seniors. I work with kids for bullying, something very much needed these days. And I work with seniors that are in assisted livings, and I work with companies, boards of directors, corporations, all to help them go from what I call an acquaintanceship to a relationship, so that we can keep more positive things going on in our lives.
I love it. I think we went a little over the half hour, because I think I could talk to you forever, and we'll probably have you on the show again, because I know we can definitely talk a whole episode on relationships. So we'll definitely get you into the GlowNatural e-zine and get some information out so people can connect with you, because you're such a great influence, and I'm so, so grateful to call you a friend and to have had you on my show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm really honored to have been talking with you and to be able to share about the law of attraction with you. Thank you.
Oh, you make me smile. Have a great day.
You too.